Michelle, welcome to the Raw podcast.
Thank
We're
you.
so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
You have quite a story to tell. And you know what? Before we get into the heavy stuff, let's just do some fun questions.
Okay, amazing.
Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Neither?
No.
Okay. Awesome. Summer or winter?
I'm like fall, spring.
You're the second person that said that.
Yes.
Okay. I asked the last person dog or man, but
Dog.
dog. Okay. The first question I always ask most of our guests is, what does authenticity mean to you?
Just being the person that you were meant to be, just being truly uh yourself, right? Not trying to meet anybody's expectations, just being the person who you want to be. That's what that means to me.
I feel like I'm just going to go right in.
Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
So, if I was to ask you what has been the most raw moment in your life, what would you choose? Because I'm sure there's many.
Yeah. You know, recently it would be, going to churches and public schools and Rotary clubs and telling my story. When I was in active addiction and homeless on the street, it would have been, me living at the corner of Dundas and Wellington on top of a heat crate. I'd been there for 3 days straight. I was living in my own filth. I hadn't showered and I wanted to die. And I'd been there for so long that people around me were walking over me to get to the bus shelter. And, at that moment, I had two choices, right? I could have stayed there and inevitably succumb to my death or, get up off that street and do something with my life. And I chose the second one.
Yeah, so happy you're here.
Me too.
So, can we delve deep into that? Can you kind of tell us your story and what led you to end up on the streets and sort of in the situation that you ended up in? And then also, I want to end on how you got out and where you're at today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, I come from a family where, my dad, he was my best friend. He was a hard worker. He meant the world to me. I looked just like him. They used to call me Little Guy. He was my absolute hero. But my dad had this thing that when he was younger, he grew up in a huge family out in North Bay. And as a young boy, he witnessed his own mother take her life. And so my dad was in that era where you show emotions or you cry, I'll give you something to cry about. And so my dad, stuffed all these emotions down, and the way he dealt with that was through comedy, through humor. He didn't know how to take life seriously, and he brought that into his own family. And so, my mother, she was a tough love kind of woman. Nothing I ever did was good enough for my mother. And, these things she also learned from her own family, right? Like my grandmother was always very hard on her. My mother had two younger brothers who were from a different father. And my grandmother like really hated my mom for it. And, these qualities that she learned, she brought it into her own family. And I have a half sister, and my sister was like the A+ student. Nothing she ever did could be wrong. She excelled well in everything she did. She was quiet, reserved, had lots of friends. And then I, on the other hand, was like the exact opposite of her. I had a learning disability. I had trouble in school. I got bullied all the time. And, I never felt comfortable in my own skin. I always felt like I was crawling in my flesh. As a little girl, I could go into a room surrounded by people and still feel like I was the only person in that room. I'd still feel so alone. And, I think just the bullying and the love and connection that I craved so much from my family and from those around me, I never got. And so, my family had to look like this picture perfect family on the outside, but in the inside, it was absolute chaos, right? It wasn't good. When I was about 12, my parents, they liked to party. My dad would work Monday through Friday. He would come home on the weekend, and my family would party. And they started to casually use drugs. And my mother's reasons to quit, I don't want to lose the family. I don't want to lose this house. I don't want to lose, the money, were my dad's reasons to continue. Well, we're going to lose the family. We're going to lose the house. I'm going to lose my job. And so, I witnessed my hero, my best friend, fall apart in front of me. And, I would try to talk to people about it and it'd be like, oh, this is the imagination of a child. Like you're getting too out of hand with this. This can't really be what's happening. And, my dad would rip apart electronics because he thought there were cameras in them. He would shove knives in door. He would rip apart electronics. He would do all of these things because he was just so stuck in his own addiction. And, my family, we separated. My sister and me went and lived with my mom. And one day my grandmother on my mom's side came and moved my sister out of the household. And that was the last time I ever spoke to my grandmother and my sister again, because my sister was this A-plus child. At this time we found out that she had a different dad and that my dad was a drug addict. And everyone on my mother's side always said that I was going to be just like my father. And, getting told things for so long, like you're fat, you're ugly, you're going to be just like your dad. You get told them enough, you start to believe it. And as a younger, my self-esteem, my self-worth were non-existent. I hated myself even as a little girl. And get in fights with my mother when I lived with her, when I lived with my dad. He would work out of town. He would come home on the weekend. He would lock himself in his room and do drugs the entire time. And so, I was never taught the necessary skills growing up to handle anything in my life. I wasn't taught how to cook, clean, grocery shop, any of these things that were like expected of me. When I would stop going to school, the person that they were calling on the other line was me, "Oh, sorry, like, Michelle's sick," sort of thing. And right. And so eventually, I moved back and forth between my dad and my mom's, and I started hanging out with these people downtown because my thing is that I've always had to chameleon to be someone other than myself. I would have to give gifts to people in order for people to hang out with me. Like I just wasn't okay with me, and I wanted to be liked and I wanted to be loved so much. And so I started hanging out with these kids downtown London who smoked weed. I thought that they were like the coolest. They had these hippie vibes. I was like, these people are going to be my friends. And I stopped going home. And, I once called my mother and she said, "Michelle, you're breaking my heart. Don't bother coming home at all." And so when I was 18, it was my first experience through homelessness. I spent a couple days on a park bench until I found out about the Salvation Army. And through the Salvation Army, I got into low-income housing. And through this low-income housing, once again, like I've got this, I've got a place, started inviting these people in who seemed like they liked me, but in reality, they just needed somewhere to go. And so being there, I got introduced to my drug of choice and things that I told myself I would never do, like, oh, I'm just going to smoke it. I'm never going to be an intravenous user. I'm never going to sell myself in order to get what I needed. I'm never going to rob, cheat, lie, or steal in order to, stay high. And the things that I told myself I wasn't going to do, I started to check off one by one by one, being held at gunpoint, being brutally assaulted by not just women, but men. These things I got put through living in this apartment building were beyond your like wildest imaginations. I wouldn't wish it on a worst enemy. And I spent 4 years there. And at that point, I was a full-blown addict. I didn't care about myself. I was living to use. And so I just went to the streets. I spent 3 years homeless on the streets of London, Ontario. And, I withered away into nothing. I was an empty shell of a human being. My teeth rot out of my face. I had caught in flesh-eating viruses. Some of the winters were so cold out there that, I opened a bottle of Sprite and it was frozen in my hand within 30 minutes. I had built this box fort by a heat grate this one time, and I heard what I thought were like voices of angels, and it was actually Allison and Amber of 519 Pursuit. And, they just said, like, "This looks really cool. How are you? What's your name?" And I'm like, "Michelle," because it always was, I had to give everything in me. But at this point, here were these two women who expected nothing out of me because I didn't have anything to give. They just wanted to know about me. They wanted to know if I needed anything. And, they said, "Do you mind if we come see you in a couple days?" And I was like, "Sure." I didn't believe them, but
Bullshit.
yeah, I'm like, okay, you're just saying this to say it to me, right? Getting my hopes up like everyone else has. And 2 days later, there they were. And, I would always have my stuff stolen from me. And Allison knew I liked Nikes and I liked sweatpants and pretty dresses. And so every time my stuff would get stolen, she would go through her own closet to get me stuff that she knew I would like. And, our friendship started to grow and flourish to the point where that, I found out my mother passed away while I was on the street. I found out a month later over Facebook. I missed her funeral, and the first person that I needed to go see was Allison. And so I went and saw her. And, every year since my mother's passed away, my mother used to always take me out to a restaurant for my birthday. Well, now Allison does that. Yeah. And, it got to the point where instead of her just seeing me, I would go out of my way to see her because I really wanted to, right? Like, she just loved me for who I was. And at this point, like, I felt as though I was the lowest of the low, right? I couldn't get any lower besides death. And, at the point where I found out my mother died, I also found out that she was pregnant with her first adorable child, and I had the flesh-eating virus. And so she had to distance herself from me, which is completely understandable because she didn't want to risk the life of her child. And that broke my heart. I really, really felt empty at that point. And this is where it ties into me on top of that heat rate. At that moment, I knew I had those two choices. It was to either try to get sobriety and try to, create a positive life for myself or die on the corner of that street. And so I went to detox, and through being in detox, I got accepted into this pilot project, the first of its kind, called the RCC. And they held me in detox, which is an acute stay, for 14 days until they could take me from detox to the RCC. And, at that point, I started to do the 12-step program. I got to work and I started to be able to volunteer with Allison at 519 Pursuit. Got to volunteer for this organization that like literally saved my life. Like these women saved my life. And, it was going really good for a while there. And I got a full-time job where, I was working kind of in the field where harm reduction was around me. And I stopped doing the things that I was supposed to do, like pray and go to meetings and call my sponsor and make sure that my recovery comes first. And the money and the job ended up becoming first. And I relapsed, and I had a 7-month of a brutal relapse. And once again, the life that I had envisioned, the peace and freedom that I once felt through my recovery, came back to me. And it was like a moment of clarity. It was like a God consciousness is what they call it in the big book. And I went back to detox. The RCC took me back under their wing. I got a sponsor and I started doing the work. And through doing that, my obsession was so great for drugs that if I would have dreamt, I would have dreamt about using drugs. And so, today I don't have that obsession whatsoever. I now have a part-time job with 519 Pursuit, this amazing organization.
So
yes, I get to take other women through the book, so I get to sponsor them. And, I get to be accountable. I get to experience a life I never thought I deserved. April 25th, I celebrated 2 years clean.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Never in my wildest dream did I think
Take a minute.
I know.
Relish in that.
Yeah.
Like, what did you just say? Like, you just said 2
years.
That's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. But maybe when I was 13, I was clean and sober, and I'll be turning 32, right?
So what is your biggest struggle now being off the streets? Like, I know that you still help through 519 and you go back and you sit with the homeless and you do all this and you feed them and you bring them lunch. But do you feel like, can you still sit, like, do they still look at you the same, or do they think, oh, look at her, she's like moved on?
I feel as though a lot of them think I'm like a message of hope, almost, that like if someone like me who's homeless and in that despairing of a condition can get out of that it's possible for anybody, right? A few times I'll be on the street and somebody will ask me if I have drugs, and I'll tell them like, no, I don't do that anymore. I'm in recovery. And, the support and the love and the happiness that I see from my friends who I was on the street with is absolutely incredible. And I hope and I wish that everybody out there can get some form of recovery.
What do you feel is the biggest misconception about homelessness and homeless people that are on the streets?
I think for me, the biggest misconception is that You know, a lot of people think, well, that's their choice. Like, why can't they get a job? Why can't they do this? And the thing is that once you've been stuck in the cycle for so long, it's not that easy, right? For me, I went to the RCC, but at this point, I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't know how to do laundry. All of these, like, basic human instincts are something that I had to relearn. And that's just a small fraction of it.
Right. And it sounded like you didn't even have them to begin with the way you were raised,
Yeah.
right? So is what has been the biggest challenge for you in terms of going from being on the streets to now, living this clean life? I'm sure it's a battle every day.
I think for me is, so we, at the RCC where I still live, we each get our own room, and it comes with a bathroom and you can decorate it however you want. And I think the biggest struggle for me is like really hitting home, like this is home. This is a place that I can make my own. Because I feel like, I'm always in a flight. Like I'm always like, never okay with just being okay. So just being comfortable with the space around me and knowing that like I'm in a safe environment that I can make for myself.
That's beautiful. Like I'm just trying to like that's a lot that you just shared. And it is so amazing how open you are to speak about this, because I feel the more you speak about it, the more people that you're going to help and you're going to give hope to those people. So
100%
kudos to you. Like I'm like so proud of you.
It's a lot of hard work.
It is a lot of hard work,
so
and it's
worth
not
it.
yeah. So, if you could bring everyone into a room that you've ever met and you can only look for one person, dead or alive, who would you look for and why?
Probably Chantal. She overdosed and passed away. She was a very smart, beautiful, bright young woman who left behind two adorable children, and her life was taken from her way too soon. So I would just really want to give her a hug and tell her, your kids are okay, they're doing amazing, and that there's so many people that miss and love her. Yeah.
And was she one of your friends, like on the street?
Yeah, just before we were even on the street, we lived together in that apartment the apartment building. So when I was like 19 years old, and, I got to see the progression of her own disease and then inevitably her succumbing to it and it taking her life. So
I'm really sorry, first of all.
Yeah.
I know she's here with you.
Of
still,
course.
right? You can call on her when you need to.
Of course. Yeah. All of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you still talk to your family?
So my mother has passed away, and my father, unfortunately, is still in his own addiction, still to this day. And so I have a big codependency with my father because I want him to get what I have so badly. And I can wish that all I want, but he has to come to that himself. And until he's brought to that point where he knows that like this is a problem, he's not going to change. And so, I love my dad from a distance. I'll call him. I'll go and see him when I know it's like an off pay day, or like on a holiday where I know, okay, he's going to eat food before he goes and grabs his drug of choice. But I've set that boundary in place and I've been able to stick with it. And I feel like it has it's made me feel a lot better doing that.
What's your biggest thing that you struggle with, like that you still face every day? Like I'm sure, like you must have a battle when you wake up every morning. No, you don't? That's great.
A couple days ago when I did celebrate 2 years, I was sitting in the car with a bunch of recovered addicts and alcoholics, and I just started to cry. And I was smiling and I felt like my heart was going to explode because at that moment, I have never, ever experienced happiness like I did at that very moment. Like, I don't think I could have gotten any happier. My life today is just filled with literally so much peace and serenity. I get to wake up clean, sober, happy, housed in this comfortable little bed and room that I have for myself. I get to work with other women. I get to work for my best friend, Allison. I couldn't ask for more. In all honesty, I couldn't.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So you feel like you've got sort of this second chance at life, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So
I think the only thing I would struggle with, I guess you could say, is being okay with the moments where I'm just allowed to say relax and get comfortable and like know that not doing anything isn't considered lazy. It's considered self-care, and just being okay with doing absolutely nothing in my pajamas watching a TV show on binge, right?
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
If you were to choose or pick a flaw of your own, what would it be?
I'm a little controlling, I've been told.
I swear today is like the type A club, eh? Like we're all type A today.
Just have a hard time being like, okay, fine, that's fine, I'm okay, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit controlling.
That's okay. That serves you.
For a long time, I had no control, right? So, I have these character defects that have been brought to life through doing the 12 steps in my fellowship. And so, like, knowing them, I can work on them, right? It's always going to be progress, never perfection.
Love it. I have to. So for people that are listening at home, Michelle, that is sitting on our couch today, is covered in these beautiful tattoos. You'll have to watch it on YouTube. But what are all these tattoos? Like, is there a lot of meaning behind them, or like?
Not really. No, I just really like them. This one right here does say we do recover, and it's got the recovery ribbon because you're breaking the chains of addiction, and it's got my clean date right there. So that's my favorite one right there. That one meets the world.
They're all beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. And I love that one up there too.
Yeah.
And look at your nails. It's like, is it like a huge, what am I trying to say? Like you never got to do your nails when you lived on the streets, right?
No.
So is that like your thing now? Like, is there something that like that you just look down at that and just feel so much like it's things that we would take for granted?
Yeah, like it's a huge part of my self-care. I would say for like about 17 months now, I always have my nails done. I was like, okay, I'm working. They need to be short. And they started just to get longer and longer as I went along. But yeah, self-care is very important. So my nails and my toes are something that I always get done every 4 weeks. And yeah, just they look pretty. I like
they look beautiful.
I like the way they make me feel.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I remember you were actually at our R.A.W show when we first launched.
Yeah, that was so inspirational.
I mean, you should have been up on the couch at that time, but
oh my God,
this is like a full circle moment now. So
I'm Allison's biggest cheerleader too. So
we love Allison.
Yeah.
Can't wait for her to come in. What is something that you would want people to know about you and your journey? And again, coming back to that misconception. And I've asked a few people today, but I really want you to talk to the viewers. Like, look right at the camera and let it out. Like, if you're angry, fucking say it.
Yeah. I guess the biggest thing would be, people are homeless on the street and they're struggling and they're still human. And they want to be treated like people, and to recognize, like, even saying hello goes a long way. The opposite of anything is connection. It's friendship. It's love. And so, maybe it's a scary thing, but just even a hello, a water bottle, anything like that goes a long way. All it took was 2 women to stop by and have a conversation with me to make me know that I needed to do more with my life. And, that obviously worked, and it can help out so many people. And today, because of that, I'm living a life that I never thought was possible. 100%.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm so happy I'm here too.
I'm gonna throw some questions to the team to see if you guys have anything. Jake is our cameraman that doesn't say boo. But I'm thinking one day he's going to come up with this brilliant question.
Okay, not today.
Not today. I know she did such a great job. And
what you just asked her was something I was going to kind of tap into. Was the fact of really people respecting you on the street. When you're out on the street, people just like
because you are a human being.
They literally thought I was a part of the sidewalk and just walked over me to get to the bus stop.
It's just completely crazy to me.
Yeah.
As a society, that's what we've come to.
Yeah.
I know this is probably going to be emotional, but what's the nastiest thing that anyone's ever done to you on the street or said to you?
Yeah, I've been called garbage several times. Having no offense, City of London, but when my mother passed away and Allison had given me all these beautiful dresses and I had made my own little tenting area down by the river. Nobody knew where it was. And, city bylaw is supposed to give you like a little eviction notice, and they left it on a tree above where I was staying by my tent. And it was for, it was dropped off Friday. I had until Monday to leave. And I went out Friday night, came back Saturday morning, and the tent and all these beautiful dresses and the piece of paper that showed my mom's obituary were all gone. And at this point, I had no shoes, I had no clothing, like I smelt bad, and like I was that broke me, right? And so, having the city say that they're going to do one thing and then doing the exact opposite, and I had these dresses and that I had Allison holding on to me for like months, and I was like, okay, now's the time. It's summer, I'm feeling really good, and it was just all taken from me.
Sorry. Yeah. It's okay. Mackenzie, do you have anything that you want to ask?
No, like that's you do a very great job at putting it into words and explaining yourself so
eloquently and
well
yes,
spoken,
right? Very
well
like look at this, look at all these God bumps on it. Like I can feel you.
Thank
So
you.
and I love the fact that you don't sit here and play victim.
No.
Because if anyone could, like the shit you've been through, you don't. Like you have taken it and it is your fucking, you wear it like a badge of honor. And that, fuck girl, you should be so proud of. Because honestly, seeing you, I just want everyone to know about you because it gives other people hope.
Yeah.
Right.
And, the familyhood and the trauma and everything that I went through, I wasn't in my addiction. I wasn't the nicest person either. Right. Like I was a sick person. I wasn't a bad person, but I was a sick person. And I was, bodily, mentally, and spiritually bankrupt. I, would have done absolutely anything I needed to do. And I had a lot of justifications, minimize and justify absolutely anything. And today, I've owned up to that. I've made amends. I've had to do what I needed to do in order to allow that to be let go.
Yeah. Are you, I don't, what, I was going to ask a question. I just don't think it would be appropriate. So just X-nay that.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to, is there anything that you're not proud of? Like if there was one thing?
I think the one thing that always resonates with me is, my mom always told me, you're going to be just like your dad, Michelle. I think like your addiction's getting out of hand. You are turning to be just like him. And there's this thing like we addicts and alcoholics have to come to that realization ourselves. It doesn't matter who's telling us, like, if you love me, you'll stop. If you care about us, you're gonna, cut down, and you have to come to that realization yourself. And so, for a while I was, well, not for a while, for a long time, I was breaking my mother's heart. And so instead of, keeping in contact with her and, doing what I needed to do just to still be in my mother's life, I disappeared. And because I disappeared, my mother passed away. She was found 10 days later in an apartment, and I think my biggest thing was like, I replay the fact that like, was my mother so alone at these last minutes? And, I could have been a better daughter and I could have been there for her. And these are just like the could have, would have's, right? And so that pain, I still put myself through, but you know, I've had a lot of work towards that, and knowing that, like, you know, my mother isn't suffering through what she was suffering through anymore. She's up in heaven, and I am now the woman that she always craved for me to be. And she's just like that guardian angel who's always looking after me now. But yeah, my mother's disappointment is like the biggest thing. Yeah.
But, you know, she's probably so proud of you.
Oh, 100%.
Sometimes it's the stories we tell ourselves too, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna end it right here. Like, that was so beautiful. And I'm so proud of you for everything you're doing and the way you're out there being an advocate for other people that might not have the voice. So thank you.
And being a friend.
Being a friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's get real.